Happy Sunday, everybody. Guess who it is? Yeah, you already know that. But France, Australian, a dragon, a blue poker chip, and a guy by the name of Dennis with a spear. All this and more on Barber Dave Shave this episode. Stay with us. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Barber Shop at Home. I am Barber Dave, and before we get started, today is all about the blue. Yes, that's right, all about the blue. And today's shave is brought to you by Nurse Dave Shaving World's Blue Poker Chip. This is a limited edition. You can bet on it. Also, today's shave is all about blue. And the guy, Dennis with a spear, spearhead shaving, if you guys didn't know that. We're going to be using Fleur de France. France. Seaforth, Fleur de France. This is a wonderful, probably the strongest one he has. Just absolutely wonderful. And we're going to be using that with the aftershave and EDT. But we're going to throw a little bit of an extra aftershave in there, and that's with the Nivea 2-in-1 and a little Aquanaut floating around in there. And then for the Aussie, that's right, Quinn's Witch Hazel. So that's what we're kind of doing today. And the dragon. You're wondering about the dragon. Well, the dragon in this episode is probably my most prized possession. At least one of the most prized possessions. And definitely the most prized straight razor that I own. It was gifted to me by the most important person in my life. And the reason why it means a lot is for that reason, number one. Number two is because it was a challenge gift. And what I mean by that is, wow, 6 years ago, I think? 7 years ago, maybe? I was about a pack and a half cigarette smoker a day. And during some conversations with some friends, the joke was about quitting smoking. And my lovely better half made a comment that says, if you can quit smoking, I'll do this. Now, originally it was a camera because I'm into photography, but then it morphed into, if I quit smoking, that I could get this custom razor made. Now, most of the people on the cadre, oh, and speaking of, don't forget, www.theshavingcadre.com, and please like, subscribe, click the bell, all that kind of good stuff. So anyways, back to where the dragon is. Well, I had been wanting to get a custom razor made, and I had some really good ideas because I was a huge Game of Thrones fan. Yes, until episode or season 8, when the whole thing fell apart. But I've been rejuvenated with House of Dragons. But anyway, that's beside the point. But there was a dragon by the name of Assyrian, and he ended up being the Ice Dragon, and I wanted a razor that was the Ice Dragon. So you saw the brush, and this was made by Ulrich at Korat Razors. This is all custom, and he had never done a brush like this to match the scales. And so this is what's known as the Ice Dragon. This is a 6/8 full-bellied hollow with Damascus, both in the wedge and on the blade itself. And it's called Zebra Damascus. Dragon scales, and if you look at the head, it looks kind of like the top of a dragon. This is my most possessed razor, although there is somebody on the cadre, we won't mention the name, but Sasquatch comes to mind, wants this razor really bad. In fact, to the point where apparently him and my wife have already determined that. Anyways, so this is a full-bellied hollow, my favorite razor, bar none, one of my most prized possessions. I don't shave with it that often. It is a full-bellied hollow, so it requires a little bit more looking at it. Now, this one did not make it into the 777 SR. It will, I'm sure. But I'm kind of biased with it, so I may not even put it in there. So we'll see. But this has been taken across the convex balsa 60 times today. So see, there you have it. I was able to do everything I said I was going to do in the intro. Now, there may be some of you that watch this that have no idea what sumo wrestling. You may have heard of it, but they have tournaments once a month, I think. And there's a group over on the Shaving Cadre that is, well, I guess the best way to put it is rabid about sumo. It was begun by a good friend of mine and brother on the cadre, Major Rich, and everybody has fallen into suit. And I was kind of an outlier. I had heard about it, but, you know, quite frankly, like most people, seeing a bunch of huge Japanese guys with big boobs slamming into each other at 40 miles an hour. Well, okay, that's facetious, not 40 miles an hour. Was not something that I thought would be entertaining. But I started thinking about it, and my favorite sport is motorsports. It's got an engine, and they go around corners or a track, whether it's 2 wheels or 4 wheels, that's my favorite sport. Well, just like those people that have told me that auto racing or car racing or motorcycle racing is not a sport, I thought the same way about sumo. I knew after being stationed in Japan, which is weird that I never got into it over there, that the tradition is huge. Basically as the modern day samurai. But I would listen to these guys talk about it and say a bunch of names like Wakataga Kanani or Wakata and Takayashu and Abi, and I didn't even know how to pronounce these names. So I would listen to the guys, and it was interesting. Then I made my fatal mistake. There is this channel called Nato Sumo, and it's the Japanese. I guess there's another channel called Jason Sumo, which is done in English, but it's usually delayed. And I guess Nato Sumo is where they put on all the tournaments. Now, if you watch the whole tournament, it's long. However, Nato Sumo just puts on the matches. So one day, this last week, it was during a tournament, which I guess is called a basho. I don't know for those of you that do. And all of the guys that these guys have been talking about were going to be in it. And so I turned it on and I looked at it. I said, well, it's only 30 minutes. Next thing I know, 30 minutes had gone by and I was into it. Then I watched the next day, then the next day. So I will tell you that my initial thoughts on sumo were completely wrong in doing some research on the history. And these guys are athletes, bar none. They may be big and they may have large mammary areas, but it's intense to watch. And the strategy that goes along with it, you will get into it. I dare anybody to watch one of the tournaments and not get into it. Now, I will not get into it like some of the sports guys do with the stats and everything else. Well, I say that, but I'm not going to say yay or nay. But it is very enjoyable to watch. And I guess the pomp and circumstance and the tradition is unlike any of your normal US-based sports, because this is not just a sport, it is a lifestyle. And these athletes, when they're not fighting, are held to a extremely high standard in their communities, which means for the most part you don't screw it up, which is very much unlike the sports we have in the United States, where some of your high-paid, quite frankly, idiot sports people decide to make their agenda known. You don't see that in sumo, and I appreciate that. And so, yeah, I'm hooked on it now. So I'm going to link Natto Sumo in my details section like I always do. And mentioning that, please make sure you check out the channels, both shaving and non-shaving, that I put down in the details. A lot of interesting stuff from the shaving standpoint, and then a lot of channels that I enjoy, both comedy, some that'll make you think, and then, of course, the Natto Sumo. So. Also, a reminder, the contest is ongoing right now. So make sure you look at yesterday's video on how to enter. I've only had one entry so far, which is surprising because we're giving away quite a bit. So please check it out. The reason why I took the razor across the balsa for 50 or 60 is because I had never done it before, and I had initially honed that that razor on a cauticule followed by an arc, a translucent arc finish, and I wanted to see if the edge would be brought up. Now the edge was tremendous already, and whereas on some of the other razors that are not full-bellied hollows, it made a huge difference on the shaveability, and quite frankly humbled me as far as a honer. I think my edges were good, but the convex strop brought them to a different level. However, on this razor, even taking it across for the first time for 50 laps, it made a slight difference, but I think that's primarily because it's already a full-bellied hollow. And but it is a bit smoother. I did have a small issue on the toe that I worked out before the shave, and I think I've got that figured out. And at first I thought it was the edge being a little goofy, but what it turns out is the Damascus, the patterning actually bled onto the edge a little bit, or not bled, but was on the edge a little bit, so it was more of a kind of a weird look, an illusion that the edge wasn't there. But it's just the patterning of the Damascus, which is kind of cool, because even with honing, you can see that Damascus pattern onto the edge, which is I'd never seen before. You know, looking back through some of my videos, I'd always said when I do the fool's pass that I use my shoulders as a fulcrum. But what I'm starting to realize is actually I'm keeping the blade almost, you know, maybe a little bit of shoulder movement, but most of it's my head bringing it down. So, which is good and bad. Oh, tremendous shave. Do you need to do a little bit of knuckle cleanup? And we'll be done. This will be the 8th video I've done in a week, which is odd for me. Yeah, I've got that toe working now. All right, that's all she wrote. Wonderful DSBBS shave. Let's see what the alum says. Nothing. A little bit in the neck area, but that's normal when you braid everything the way you do. So yeah, just a beautiful shave. And again, as I had mentioned, the Aussie Quinn's Lavender. We'll let that dry down for just a few seconds while we go over everything and clean up. And I didn't mention this in the opening, but the brush that's used on this, the knot, I should say, that's used on this brush, which matches the scales, is the same High Mountain Manchurian that is used on the Sapodificcio Veracino brushes. So again, this is the Korat Ice Dragon brush. Really unique patterning and really easy to hold on to. And then of course for the razor, we used the Korat Ice Dragon Damascus. Just a wonderful razor, my favorite. And this one has its own little sheath that it stays in all the time. And we're going to do 2 aftershaves today, just because. And we're going to be using the Nivea 2-in-1. And you only need a couple of drops of this stuff. Because it's an aftershave, but it acts very much like a balm. Really nourishing to the skin. And I got to thank our buddy Nurse Dave for turning me on to this stuff. It's really nice. And then, of course, the Dennis and the Spearhead Shaving. Dennis is just a wonderful soap maker, artisan, and Seaforth brought back the brand from the 40s. And this, to me, is just an absolute powerhouse. Definitely a 5 out of 5 on the SOS. Just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful scent. And we're going to be using Clubman talc today, as lately has been of the case. It looks like I caught myself. And then for the EDT, we'll be using, once again, Seaforth Fleur de France. And that's it, folks. Well, thank you so much for joining us for another shave. Please make sure that you go into the contest and all that other stuff and come see us at www.theshavingcadre.com. I hope you guys have a blessed Sunday. I'm Barber Dave, and this has been Barber Dave's Barbershop at Home. We'll see you again very soon. Take care.